Hello, my name is Christy Godwin, and I'm a psychic medium. I'm here with my friend Dana, and she was so kind to be here and talk about her reading. She had another marathon reading with lots of people coming through, lasted a long time. Thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for inviting me.
So, a little bit about how I know Dana. We had been friends for a long time, about 20 years. Is that about right?
Well, it would have been in 98. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
a long time.
long time.
And we had actually met in a different state and became friends there. Then we went our separate ways, remained kind of acquaintances, didn't know a whole lot about what was going on in each other's life. And then, fate, we are back in the same city again and kind of reconnected. So now, Dana, when I first came out and sent, because when I had my website built, that was going to be a psychic medium and starting my business, I blasted it out to my entire friends group. What did you think when you first saw that?
You know what? I was a little surprised, but I was so excited for you because I did not realize that that was a gift that you had. You were always intuitive as far as I could tell, but I never knew that that was a gift that you had. And I was so excited for you because my guess was that you had kind of held that back in your life and kind of walled that off and didn't allow yourself to explore that piece of who you are. And now you really truly get to be who you are as a person and share your gift with the world. And from what I can tell, your gift is pretty amazing. So
Thank you. And it's true. I had kind of walled it off and didn't actually realize how strong it was until I started taking classes, training, and then you get to kind of compare yourself to others. And yeah, I didn't realize how strong it was either until then. And so we were texting about something different, not this, because I did not realize, I didn't have any idea what you thought about my business. And I will do that when I am touching base with friends. I don't bring it up because some people don't agree with this gift, and that's okay. I'm not here to change anyone's belief system. But we were texting about something else, and I think you mentioned it, just how excited you were for me.
absolutely.
And that was fun to hear. And so I said, okay, you've been my friend forever. I'm going to give you a free reading. And this was months ago.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, you're really busy. So I'm gonna wait till, Christmas break. And that's what we did. So you had your reading a few days ago and it was a marathon. Lots of people came. How many was it? 8, 9 people that came through?
A lot. Yeah. I think that's about accurate. Yeah.
It was a lot and well over 2 hours. It doesn't happen that way for everyone. So I don't want people to think if they schedule a reading, they're gonna have that many people come through. You just had a lot of people in spirit and they communicated beautifully. Now, the first person that came forward, which is who I thought it would be, was your mom.
Yeah.
But I was also nervous because she was telling me things I already knew about you and I wouldn't take it. I was like, nope, nope. You have to tell me something I don't know. So your mom was so funny because she's in spirit. And on the other side, I was like, no, sorry, I already know that. You have to tell me something else. She sends her, she does this. And okay, I got it. And so then she played out the scene that I then told you. What was it that convinced you it was your mom?
And you know what? I can't honestly remember because I was so overwhelmed with the reading. I don't remember what the specific details were that you shared with me, but I just was like, absolutely, that's my mom. And I'll be honest, I knew she would probably come first anyway, because that's just the person that she is. She's not exactly a wallflower. And but I knew instantaneously when you shared the story that it was her. So.
And a lot of times that will happen because if I'm reading someone, they will kind of drop their name into the other person's head. But something that I thought was interesting, and you'll remember when I tell you, because I thought your mom was showing me a habit that she had. Because she's sitting back and she has a necklace that she's playing with.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that she was showing me that she had a habit of playing with her necklace, but that wasn't the case.
No. Mm-hmm. No, she was describing a necklace to you. You described it to me and I knew instantly that it was her and that it was her necklace. And it is a round pendant it was very popular in the 70s. And actually it's just coming back again now, with a mustard seed in it. And so, and I have it, it's here in my home. And as soon as you started describing it, I knew exactly what it was. So,
And then something else your mom did, which this happens frequently, is I will say things, I have no idea what they mean, but she was showing me, like there was a car in her garage, and then she was showing me an SUV, and I didn't know why she was doing that, but it made sense to you.
yeah, it absolutely did. So she was talking about the car that my stepdad had let her drive. And they had decided that they were going to swap cars because she wanted to buy a new car and he didn't think she should spend the money. So he gifted her his car. And then she just swapped cars with him and gave him her car. And partially because he has other vehicles that he could drive as well. And so, but I believed that she gave the car back pretty abruptly at one point, and it was after she'd had a little fender bender. And I believe it was because she knew that her cancer had returned. It was at that time too, she had told me she couldn't watch my children anymore. She didn't feel like she had the strength to deal with my then 1.5-year-old toddler. And so it made total sense that that was the message that she shared. So I thought that was very interesting.
It
So,
was, and I wasn't sure why she was showing me, because it's like, Dana, she's showing me the garage with the car. No, that's an SUV. Well, and so, and you knew exactly what she was talking about, which happens a lot.
yeah, absolutely.
I see, but it's not my life, so it doesn't mean anything to me. Now,
Right.
who surprised you the most at coming through?
So there was a guy that I grew up with. We were in middle school and high school together. And I was really shocked that he came through. His name was Steve. And he was someone who was on the outskirts of my friend group, but was not somebody who I was really, really close to. So that was
That
the
happens a lot in readings, and people will come through that we feel like we didn't have a big connection to on this side. And what I thought was so, which I do this frequently, he was having a hard time communicating because he was so quiet. People don't change their personalities. If they're quiet on this side, they're going to be quiet on the other side. And so your mom had come through, and which was such a strong communicator, I sent her over to help him communicate. And I will do that frequently. But when she went over there, you were still kind of unsure, having a hard time. And then your mom went over, and instead of helping him communicate, she helped him walk, which was very telling that you're like, oh, yeah, that's Steve.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in my mind, it was somebody else. I just assumed it was going to be somebody else coming through.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was part of the difficulty in figuring out exactly who it was because I thought it was another person who had been ill when we were in high school, and it was not him. So,
And once Steve came forward with the message, then it was fitting, and you're like, oh, that's why he stepped forward.
absolutely.
But his message, it was very fitting. Also, I want to address what you just said, because that happens so much. We think we know who is going to step forward. So details I'm giving, you're trying to make fit that person.
Mm-hmm.
And if I get a few no's, I will say, okay, let's take a step back, and I'm going to go through the details I have. Let's think about who else that fits, because I might interpret a couple of things wrong, but if you're like, yeah, no, not fitting, then I ask the sitter to take a step back and say, okay, well, who can this fit? And that's exactly what happened. We're just very shocked. He came forward, and he showed me that he was kind of on the outside. And also part of his message was how sweet and kind you always were to him, and always made him feel special, which does not surprise me about my friend Dana, because that's the kind of person she is.
Thank you.
Now, what was one of the messages that surprised you the most?
I think the message that I received from my cousin who owned his behavior.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Kind of a funny part of the read. He came in, I don't know, like halfway through or almost the end, somewhere in there. And so I'm describing him, Dana and him are going back and forth having this discussion through me. And owned his behavior, was very good about that, but he was not the kindest person on earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I turned to him and he said something about comparing. He was comparing himself to Dana. And instantly, poor Dana's probably just sitting there because I'm looking at him, having this discussion, thinking, no, you are nothing like my friend. My friend is sweet and she's kind. No, I will not compare you to her. And so I mentioned it to Dana and she said, no, my dad used to compare us all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
not to the negative, mean parts, but
Right.
some of the other aspects of your cousin's behavior had been compared to you. And yeah, so sometimes I will have a discussion with this. I don't think so. And then after your reading, you gifted your husband a reading.
I did, yes.
Yes, and Steve, who then I read him a few days later. He again had another marathon 2-hour reading. Lots of people came through. Now, in the beginning, it took a minute to place who was coming through first. There was a couple of reasons for that. Sometimes when spirit comes forward, if there's a group of them and they're like kind of both elbowing to get, there'll be like a energetic glob towards me. And they're presenting, you can tell there's more than one energy, but I have to separate them. So I did separate them, but then two kind of came in together still. Mm-hmm. Also, some of the description, I think that Steve wasn't expecting the first person that stepped forward to step forward.
Right, absolutely. Which would have been, yeah, his dad and his grandfather, I think, were kind of vying for the same spot. So, and
that happened because it was his, they both wanted to come forward.
Yeah.
And then in the end, his dad stepped forward and his grandfather stayed behind. Mm-hmm. And then came forward next, of course. Mm-hmm. Now, what I found interesting about Steve's dad, so we won't say a whole lot about it, but he owned some of his behavior in the beginning. Like, he didn't apologize, which is an important difference there. He owned it. He said, I did it. I was the cause of that.
Yeah.
So then we move on through the reading, bring through a ton of people. We're towards the end, about 2 hours in at this point. And then what does Dana say?
Dana says that Steve's dad needs to own his behavior.
That's exactly what Dana said. So then I didn't know anything. I didn't know what Dana was talking about. Mm-hmm. Know anything about Steve's history. So I turn and I'm bringing his dad back up, and his dad comes up with complete attitude at this point. Just the way his energy is walking towards him. He's like, oh, this is going to be fun. And again, he owned his behavior, but he never apologized for it. And he basically said he wasn't going to apologize for it.
Right.
Which is healing in its own self, that then you know.
Well, and that's kind of what we had talked about, was that, and I even said, the fact that he does not apologize for his choices it's pretty telling, because what that says is that at least he owned the behavior. Even though he's not willing to apologize, then you're not responsible for that bad behavior. You did nothing to cause it. It had absolutely zero to do with you. It had to do with him, and it needs to stay with him. And so it really was, I think, a healing thing. So
a couple of things from that. I will always tell you what the Spirit is saying. Mm-hmm. And I might not agree with what they're saying, which I didn't, because I was trying to say, in my head, I'm not saying it out loud, but in my head, I'm having the conversation with his dad saying, aren't you going to apologize? And his dad was like, no, I'm not apologizing. This is all you're getting from me. I owned it. Mm-hmm. And so I will always tell you what Spirit is saying, even if it's not really what we want to hear.
Yeah.
Because even in that, there was healing in it. And I think sometimes people don't realize how healing readings can be. Just having confirmations come from the other side. I've never had a spirit lie to me. They don't lie.
Right.
Even when they say things that you'd rather not hear, they're honest.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
So now, did you and Steve have conversation about that reading later?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was one family member that we were trying to place that we could not place. And so we had even processed a little with his mom because it was someone from her side. And, it was nice to be able to process that, but we still have not yet determined what spirit that was. So,
Yes, and hopefully it clicks later, and that will happen every once in a while. I did a reading not too long ago with a lady, and couldn't place a spirit, so we set them to the side. And towards the end of the reading, I said, you know what, this spirit is still coming forward. Let's see who he is. Let me just see what he has to say. Maybe his message will tell who he is. So we didn't place who the spirit necessarily was, but when he came forward, I said, who has the broken toilet? He keeps talking about a broken toilet. And her brother had a broken toilet. So the spirit had a message for the brother, and it fit his scenario and what was going on in his life specifically. And, it's one of those times as a medium, I'm like, why do I really have to say it? Okay, let me say it, because, I think that this lady sitting with me is going to look at me like I have 3 heads when I talk about a broken toilet. But
right.
The light went off.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being with me today.
Absolutely.
And what would you say to someone who is scared to have a reading?
You know what? I would say just do it. I feel like it was probably one of the more healing things that I've done for myself. And, I've always known that my family and my people who are close to me are with me all the time anyway. But it was really nice to just have that confirmation and to just have a little bit of time with them. So definitely an amazing opportunity, and you should do it.
Thank you. And they do have something funny real quick, and then we'll close it up. But someone came through, and it was with Steve's reading. But I will always say when Spirit says, okay, I'm with Dana, or I'm with Steve, I say, okay, prove it. And they will tell me things that they've seen you do.
Yeah.
And so one of Steve's relatives, it was so funny because I had no idea one of your children likes to color on your walls. And so I was like, the Spirit kept talking about one of your daughters. I said, he really likes her. And I said, does she like color on the walls? Because he showed me a scene where this little girl is coloring on the wall, and he, in spirit, is just standing there laughing his rear end off. He just...
Yep, and she likes to kiss the walls. She'll put lipstick on and kiss the walls.
That does not surprise me.
Yep, exactly.
Thank you again for being here. And if anyone has any questions or concerns, please email me at christygodwin111@gmail.com. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.